Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the wide viewing screen. His ship had been exploring this part of space for 3 months now. The mission was simple: map new star systems and look for signs of life. What they found was something no one expected. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Amy Carter from her station. She was the ship's communication officer, a young woman with bright eyes and quick fingers on the control panels. "It's a distress beacon, but the pattern is strange. I've never seen anything like it." Jake walked over to her station. The signal showed on her screen as waves of light that pulsed in odd rhythms. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" "About 2 light hours away near that red star." Amy pointed to a spot on the navigation display. "But Captain, there are other signals too. Lots of them. And they don't sound friendly." Pete Williams looked up from the engineering station. He was a big man with steady hands who kept their ship running smoothly. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that direction. Whatever's happening over there, it's big." Lisa Rodriguez turned from the tactical station. She was their weapons officer, smart and careful about danger. "Sir, those energy readings match weapon signatures. Someone's fighting a battle over there." Jake thought for a moment. They were explorers, not fighters, but someone was calling for help. "Set course for the signal. Yellow alert. Let's see what we're dealing with." The Horizon moved through space toward the unknown signals. As they got closer, the ship's sensors began picking up more details. Dr. Helen Brooks came to the bridge from her science lab. She was their expert on alien life forms. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, showing him a data pad. "The computer is analyzing the signals. There are 2 different types of technology involved in this fight. One uses energy weapons that bend space itself. The other uses machines that seem to repair themselves during battle." "How long has this fight been going on?" Jake asked. Helen looked at her readings again. "Based on the radiation patterns and debris fields, I'd say a very long time. Maybe hundreds of years. The computer estimates at least 1,000 years of continuous warfare in this system." The bridge went quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. This wasn't just a battle. This was a war that had been going on longer than human civilization. "Captain," Amy said softly, "the distress signal is coming from a damaged ship. It's caught between the 2 fighting forces." On the main screen, they could now see the battle. Bright flashes of light marked where weapons hit their targets. Strange ships made of what looked like living crystal fought against dark metal vessels that changed shape as they moved. The space between them was filled with wreckage from countless destroyed ships. "My God," whispered Pete. "Look at the size of those fleets." Jake counted hundreds of ships on each side. The crystal ships glowed with inner light and moved like living things. The metal ships looked like mechanical beasts with weapons growing from their hulls. Both sides fought with a fury that seemed endless. "There." Lisa pointed to a small ship tumbling slowly through the battle zone. That must be the ship sending the distress call. The small vessel was badly damaged. Parts of it looked like the crystal ships, but other parts were clearly metal technology. It spun helplessly while the 2 fleets battled around it. "It's a mixed ship," Helen said with surprise. "Someone built it using technology from both sides. But that should be impossible if they're fighting each other." Jake made his decision. "We're going in. Amy, try to contact both fleets. Let them know we're here on a rescue mission." "Captain, that might not be wise," Lisa warned. "We don't know how they'll react to outsiders." Someone called for help. "We answer," Jake said firmly. "Red alert. All hands to stations." Amy sent messages on all frequencies, speaking in the basic mathematical languages that most space-traveling species understood. The response came quickly, but not in words. "Captain, both fleets are turning toward us," Lisa called out. On the screen, dozens of ships from each side broke away from their battle and moved toward the horizon. The crystal ships pulsed with bright energy while the metal ships extended new weapons. "They're not stopping," Pete said, watching his instruments. "Both sides are targeting us." Jake gripped his command chair. "Evasive maneuvers. Try to reach that damaged ship." The Horizon dove and twisted through space as energy beams and metal projectiles flew around them. Jake's crew worked with smooth efficiency, each person doing their job perfectly. But they were just one small ship against hundreds of alien warriors. "Hull damage on Deck 3. Pete reported as the ship shook from a near miss. "I'm reading life signs on that damaged vessel," Helen called out. "At least 3 different species aboard." The crystal ships surrounded them first. Up close, Jake could see they were beautiful and terrible. They looked like massive jewels that had grown into the shape of warships. Light moved through them like blood through veins. When they spoke, the words came directly into the minds of everyone on the bridge. Unknown vessel, you enter sacred combat zone. You will be destroyed or captured. Choose quickly. At the same time, the metal ships arrived. Their voices came through the communication system in mechanical tones without emotion. Organic vessel detected. Technology level primitive. Threat assessment minimal. Capture protocols activated. Captain, we're caught between them, Lisa said. I count 47 crystal ships and 33 metal ships. All weapons are locked onto us. Jake looked at his crew. These were good people who trusted him to keep them safe. The battle between the crystal and metal ships had stopped completely. Both fleets now focused entirely on the human vessel. Amy, open all channels, Jake said calmly. All frequencies open, Captain. Jake took a deep breath. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Horizon. We received a distress call and came to help. We are not your enemy. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then both fleets began moving closer. The crystal ships hummed with energy while the metal ships clicked and whirred as they prepared weapons. I don't think they care where we're from, Pete said quietly. The largest crystal ship moved directly in front of them. Its voice filled their minds again, but this time with curiosity mixed with threat. Earth. This name is unknown. You are neither Zephyrian nor Vortani. You are something new. This changes the equation of battle. Jake felt hope rise in his chest. Maybe they could talk their way out of this. Maybe they could even help end this ancient war. He was about to speak when everything went white. Some kind of energy beam wrapped around their ship like a net. The last thing Jake saw before losing consciousness was his crew falling to the floor around him. The war that had lasted 1,000 years had just found something completely unexpected. Humans. Jake Morrison woke up in a room that seemed to be made entirely of blue crystal. The walls pulsed with soft light that made him feel slightly dizzy. He tried to sit up and found that he wasn't restrained, but moving was difficult. The air itself felt thick and strange. Captain? Amy Carter's voice came from somewhere nearby. Jake turned his head and saw her sitting against the far wall. Her eyes were wide with fear. I'm here, Amy. Are you hurt? I don't think so. But this place feels wrong. It's like the walls are watching us. Jake looked around the crystal room more carefully. The surfaces seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. Sometimes he thought he could see shapes moving inside the crystal walls. Where are the others? Jake asked. I don't know. We woke up in different rooms. I can hear Pete calling from somewhere, but I can't tell where. Jake stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, but he could move. He walked to what he thought might be a door, but there was just solid crystal. As he touched it, the wall became warm under his hand. Suddenly, a voice spoke directly inside his head. It was clear and cold, like the sound of breaking glass. You are awake. Good. I am Commander Zixtel of the Zephyrian Fleet. You will answer questions. Jake looked around but saw no one. Where are you? Show yourself. The crystal wall in front of him began to glow brighter. Slowly, a shape formed inside it. Jake stepped back as he watched a figure made of living crystal emerge from the wall. It was tall and thin, with multiple arms that ended in points like spears. Where its face should be, there was just a cluster of bright lights. I am here, Zixtal said without moving what Jake assumed was its mouth. Your species is unknown to us. Explain your presence in our war zone. We're explorers, Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. We received a distress call. We came to help whoever was in trouble. The crystal being tilted its head. The lights where its face should be flickered in patterns Jake couldn't understand. Help! This concept requires explanation. You came to aid unknown beings in combat? Yes, when someone calls for help, we try to answer. Zixtal moved closer. Its crystal body made soft ringing sounds as it walked. Fascinating. Your species interferes in conflicts that do not concern you. This suggests either great foolishness or unknown strategic purpose. Jake felt the alien's thoughts pressing against his mind like cold fingers. It was painful, but he tried not to show it. We don't have any strategy. We just believe in helping others. Belief, another strange concept. Zixtel raised one of its sharp arms and pointed at Jake. You will observe our conflict with the Vortani. You will understand why help is meaningless. The crystal walls around Jake became transparent. He could see space outside where the battle continued. The crystal ships moved like dancers, spinning and weaving between streams of energy. The metal ships responded with brutal efficiency. their weapons tracking every movement. This war has continued for 3,000 of your Earth years, Zixtal explained. We have fought in 17 star systems. We have destroyed 12 worlds. Neither side can achieve victory. Jake watched as a crystal ship was hit by metal weapons. Instead of exploding, it seemed to absorb the damage and grow brighter. At the same time, a metal ship that had been cut in half by crystal energy quickly rebuilt itself with new parts that appeared from nowhere. Why can't either side win? Jake asked. Because we are perfectly matched. Every Zephyrian advantage is countered by Vortani adaptation. Every Vortani strategy is defeated by Zephyrian evolution. We are trapped in eternal balance. But why keep fighting? If no one can win, why not stop? Zixtal's lights flashed brighter. Jake felt a sharp pain in his head as the alien's thoughts pressed harder against his mind.
Stop, this word has no meaning.
We are Zephyrian. We exist to perfect ourselves through combat. The Vortani exist to calculate optimal destruction. Neither side possesses the concept you call stopping. Jake staggered as the mental pressure increased. Through the pain, he began to understand something terrible. You mean you can't stop fighting? It's not that you won't, you actually can't. Correct. Combat is our evolution. Peace is death to us. On the other side of the crystal ship, Jake could hear Pete Williams shouting. His engineer's voice echoed through the walls. Hey, can anyone hear me? There's some kind of robot in here. Zixtal's attention turned away from Jake for a moment. Your companion has encountered a Vortani prisoner. Perhaps you should observe their interaction. The crystal wall shifted and Jake could suddenly see into another room. Pete was standing face to face with a metal creature that looked like a walking machine. It had 6 arms, each ending in different tools and weapons. Its head was a smooth metal dome with glowing red sensors. I am Core Prime 7743 of the Vortani Collective, the machine said in a voice like grinding gears. You are organic life form, species unknown. State your function. Pete, being Pete, tried to be friendly. I'm an engineer. I fix things and keep them running. What's your function? I calculate optimal destruction patterns for enemy vessels. I have computed 847,392 potential battle scenarios. All result in continued warfare. Wait, all of them? Haven't you calculated any scenarios where the fighting stops? The machine's sensors focused on Pete with sudden intensity. Negative warfare outcome not found in database. Combat cessation protocols do not exist. Please clarify query. Jake watched as Pete's expression changed from confusion to understanding. His engineer had figured out the same thing Jake had. These beings literally couldn't think about peace. Zixtal, Jake said, your people and the Vortani aren't just fighting a war. You've become the war. It's changed you so much that you can't imagine anything else. Accurate assessment, Zixtal replied. We have evolved beyond your primitive concepts of peace and cooperation. We are perfect war machines. But what happens when the war ends? It cannot end. What if it has to end? What if something forced both sides to stop fighting? For the first time, Zixtal seemed uncertain. Its lights flickered irregularly. Theoretical impossibility. External force sufficient to stop both Zephyrian and Vortani fleets does not exist in known universe. Jake smiled grimly. You might be surprised what exists in the unknown universe. He was starting to form an idea, but he needed to talk to his crew first. He needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. Most importantly, he needed to figure out if there was something these ancient warriors had never encountered. A perspective from outside their endless war. I want to see my crew, Jake said. For what purpose? To understand. You want to know about humans, right? We work together. We solve problems by talking to each other and combining our different skills. You can't understand us by keeping us apart. Zixtal considered this acceptable. You will be allowed to gather with your companions, but you will remain prisoners until we determine your strategic value. Fair enough. As the crystal walls began to shift and change, Jake felt a spark of hope. These aliens thought they were perfect war machines. But they had one weakness they didn't know about. They had forgotten how to think about anything except fighting. Jake and his crew were about to remind them that there were other ways to solve problems. Whether the aliens liked it or not, the humans were going to show them something completely new. Jake Morrison sat with his crew in what the Zephyrians called a conference chamber. The room was made of the same living crystal as the rest of the ship, but larger, with a table that seemed to grow from the floor. His people looked tired but unharmed. Okay, everyone report, Jake said. What have you learned about our hosts? Pete Williams spoke first. Captain, I spent 2 hours with that Vortani machine, Core Prime 7743. It's not just a soldier. It's like a living computer designed only for war. When I asked it about peace treaties, it actually couldn't process the concept. Its programming has no reference for ending conflicts. Dr. Helen Brooks nodded. I've been studying both species through the walls of my cell. The Zephyrians have evolved specialized brain structures that release pleasure chemicals during combat. They're literally addicted to fighting, and the Vortani have removed all emotional programming except anger and tactical thinking. Amy Carter looked pale. Captain, I tried to establish communication protocols with both sides. Their languages don't have words for compromise, negotiation, or surrender. They can only talk about victory and defeat. Lisa Rodriguez had been quiet, but now she leaned forward. Sir, I've been watching their battle patterns. They're not trying to win anymore. They're maintaining the fight. Both sides could have ended this war centuries ago, but they keep pulling back from decisive victories. Jake absorbed this information, so they're stuck in a war they can't end, don't want to end, and have forgotten how to end. That's about right, Pete said. The crystal wall began to glow, and Commander Zixtal emerged from it. Behind the alien leader came the Vortani machine that Pete had talked with earlier. Humans, Zixtal's voice echoed in their minds. You have observed our conflict. You understand our nature. Now you will serve a purpose in our war. What kind of purpose? Jake asked carefully. Core Prime 7743 answered in its mechanical voice. Analysis indicates human technology is primitive but adaptable. You will be studied to improve weapon systems. Your vessel will be analyzed and reverse engineered. Wait, Amy said suddenly. You're going to use us to make your weapons better? That will just make the war worse. Incorrect, the Vortani replied. Improved weapons will increase battle efficiency. This is optimal outcome. No, it's not. Pete stood up, his engineer's mind working. Listen to me, both of you. If you make your weapons better, the other side will have to make their weapons better too. The war will get bigger and more destructive, but it still won't end. Zixtal's lights flickered with what might have been confusion. Explain this reasoning. Dr. Helen Brooks joined the conversation. It's like an arms race. Each side keeps building better weapons to beat the other side. But since you're evenly matched, you both keep getting stronger at the same rate. You're stuck in a loop that just keeps making everything more dangerous. Fascinating theory, Zixtal said. However, irrelevant. Combat improvement is our evolutionary path. But what if there was a different path? Jake asked, both aliens focused on him. Core Prime 7743's sensors glowed brighter. Clarified, different path. Jake looked at his crew, then back at the aliens. What if I told you there was a threat coming that would destroy both your species? Something that your war couldn't stop, no matter how good your weapons are. Theoretical impossibility, the Vortani stated. All threats can be eliminated through superior firepower. Not this one, Jake said quietly. Amy caught on to what Jake was thinking. She pulled out her data pad and showed it to both aliens. Our ship's sensors detected something while we were approaching this system. There's a rogue black hole moving through this sector of space. The aliens examined the data. Zixtal's lights flashed rapidly, while Core Prime 7743's sensors focused intensely on the readings. Trajectory calculations confirm threat, the Vortani said after a moment. Black hole will intersect with this star system in 1.7 Earth years. Gravitational effects will destroy all planets and space installations. Evacuation parameters are insufficient, Zixtal added, its mental voice showing something Jake had never heard before. Concern. Fleet cannot transport entire populations of inhabited worlds in time frame available. Jake stood up. That's right. Your war has been so focused on fighting each other that neither side has prepared for external threats. You've got millions of people on both sides who are going to die because you've spent all your resources on weapons instead of evacuation ships. Unacceptable outcome, Core Prime 7743 stated. Agreed, Zixtal said. Pete grinned. Now you're thinking like humans. When we face a problem we can't fight, we find another way to solve it. Specify another way, the Vortani requested. Lisa Rodriguez pulled up a display on her tablet. Deflector arrays. Instead of trying to destroy the black hole or run away from it, you change its course. Push it away from your inhabited systems. Energy requirements for such operation exceed capacity of individual fleets. Core Prime 7743 calculated quickly. Exactly, Jake said. But what if both fleets worked together? The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Both aliens stood perfectly still, their mental processors apparently frozen by this concept. Together, Zixtal finally said, Zephyrian and Vortani forces operating in coordination rather than opposition. Combat protocols do not contain cooperative parameters, Core Prime 7743 stated. Then you'll have to write new protocols, Helen said. Both of you. Amy leaned forward excitedly. Think about it. Zephyrian energy manipulation combined with Vortani engineering precision. You could build deflector systems that neither side could create alone. The energy beam arrays we saw on your ships, Pete added, combined with the adaptive construction techniques of the Vortani fleet, you could probably move that black hole anywhere you wanted. Zixtal and Core Prime 7743 looked at each other. It was the first time Jake had seen them acknowledge each other as anything other than enemies. Cooperation requires trust, Zixtal said slowly. Zephyrians do not possess trust protocols for Vortani. Vortani have no cooperation algorithms for Zephyrian forces. Core Prime 7743 agreed. Then you'll have to learn, Jake said simply, because the alternative is that everyone dies. Captain, Lisa said quietly, there's something else. The data Amy showed them. That black hole isn't going to just destroy this system. Its gravity well is going to disrupt hyperspace lanes throughout this entire sector. Even if some people escape, they'll be cut off from each other forever. Jake nodded. Your war ends either way. Either you learn to work together and save everyone, or the black hole ends it for you by destroying everything you've been fighting for. The two aliens stood in silence for a long time. Jake could almost see their minds struggling with concepts they had never been designed to handle. Finally, Zixtal spoke. This cooperation, how would it function? Small steps, Jake replied. You start with something simple that both sides need. Share information, combine technologies, learn to communicate without shooting first. And if we succeed in deflecting this black hole threat, Core Prime 7743 asked, what occurs afterward? Jake smiled. Then you get to find out what else is possible when you're not spending all your time and energy trying to kill each other. For the first time in 3,000 years, the leaders of the Zephyrian and Vortani forces began to consider the possibility of peace. The first meeting between Zephyrian and Vortani leaders in over 1,000 years took place aboard a neutral vessel, hastily constructed from parts of both fleets. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the strange conference room, feeling the tension that filled the air like electricity. Commander Zixtal materialized from a crystal formation on one side of the room. Its lights pulsed in slow, careful patterns. Across from it, Core Prime Alpha 1, the Supreme Vortani commander, emerged from a mechanical platform. The robot was larger than any Vortani Jake had seen before, with dozens of sensors and processing units visible across its hull. This gathering violates 3,000 years of protocol, Core Prime Alpha 1 stated in a voice like grinding metal. Agreed, Zixtal replied, its mental voice sharp with discomfort. Proximity to Vortani command structure triggers automatic combat responses. Jake looked between them. Both aliens were literally fighting their own instincts just to be in the same room. But you're both here. That's a start. Amy Carter worked at her communication station, which had been modified with both Zephyrian crystal interfaces and Vortani mechanical systems. I'm reading stress levels through the roof on both sides, but they're staying. Dr. Helen Brooks studied her scanner readings. Captain, their biology is working against them. The Zephyrians are producing combat hormones just from being near Vortani technology. The Vortani are running battle calculations on automatic. Pete Williams looked up from his engineering console. The good news is that both their technologies are compatible with our deflector plan. The bad news is they're going to have to work together for months to build it. Lisa Rodriguez had been quietly observing both alien commanders. Sir, I think the key is giving them something specific to focus on. Right now, they're just thinking about each other as enemies. Jake nodded and activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed the approaching black hole and its projected path through the star systems both species called home. Forget about each other for a minute, Jake said. Look at this. The display zoomed in on inhabited planets in the path of destruction. Both Zephyrian crystal cities and Vortani mechanical complexes would be crushed by tidal forces as the black hole passed through their systems. Population of affected worlds. Zephyrian colonies contain approximately 47 million beings. Core Prime Alpha 1 calculated. Vortani installations house 63 million units. 110 million lives, Jake said quietly. All gone unless we can deflect this thing. Zixtal's lights dimmed. Evacuation remains impossible. Transport capacity insufficient for populations of this magnitude. Defense is also impossible. Core Prime Alpha 1 added. No weapon system can affect gravitational anomaly of this scale. Which brings us back to deflection, Jake said. Pete, show them the plan. Pete activated his engineering displays. Detailed schematics filled the air between the three commanders. The concept is simple. We build a massive gravitational field generator using Zephyrian energy-focusing crystals and Vortani adaptive construction techniques. Amy translated as Pete continued. The Zephyrians can create energy fields powerful enough to warp space. The Vortani can build machines that adjust themselves in real time. Combined, they can create a deflector system that pushes the black hole into a safe trajectory. Energy requirements? Zixtal asked. Pete's calculations appeared on the display. Enormous. It would take every power core in both fleets working together. Construction time? Core Prime Alpha 1 requested. 4 months minimum, and that's if both sides share all their technology and work without any conflicts. The room fell silent. Jake watched both commanders process this information. He could see them struggling with the implications. Cooperation at this level requires complete technological transparency. Zixtal stated. Affirmative. All defensive and offensive capabilities would be revealed to enemy forces. Core Prime Alpha 1 agreed. That's the point, Jake said. You can't cooperate while hiding things from each other. Trust means vulnerability. Lisa stepped forward. Commanders, may I suggest something? Start small. Pick one small project that both sides can work on together. Build trust gradually. Specify small project. Core Prime Alpha 1 requested. Amy had been monitoring the communications between the two fleets. Actually, there's already something both sides need. The refugee ships. She brought up another display showing the damaged vessel that had first called for help. That ship was built by refugees from both species. Families that were separated by the war and tried to escape together. There are dozens of similar vessels scattered throughout the combat zone. Jake saw immediately where Amy was going with this. Rescue operations. Something both sides can work on that isn't military. Zephyrian crystal technology could locate survivors trapped in debris fields, Helen added, studying the data. Vortani mechanical systems could repair damaged ships. Pete nodded enthusiastically. And humans could coordinate the operations, making sure both sides communicate effectively. Zixtal and Core Prime Alpha 1 looked at each other directly for the first time. It was a brief glance, but Jake saw something change in that moment. These refugees, Zixtal said slowly, they represent individuals from both civilizations who chose cooperation over conflict. Correct. Their survival demonstrates that Zephyrian and Vortani can coexist, Core Prime Alpha 1 observed. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. So you'll work together on rescue operations? Acceptable, both commanders said at the same time. Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened. Joint rescue teams began operating throughout the war zone. Zephyrian scouts used their energy-sensing abilities to find life signs in wreckage that Vortani sensors couldn't detect. Vortani engineers repaired ships that Zephyrian crystal technology couldn't fix. Jake's crew served as coordinators, teaching both sides how to communicate effectively and resolve conflicts without violence. Amy developed translation protocols that helped both species understand each other's technical language. Pete showed them how to combine their technologies safely. Helen helped them understand each other's biology and psychology. Lisa taught them tactical cooperation. The most important moment came when a joint team rescued a mixed family, a Zephyrian parent and Vortani offspring who had been trapped in a damaged ship for months. When the family was brought aboard the rescue vessel, both the Zephyrian and Vortani crew members worked together to provide medical care. It's working, Jake told his crew as they watched the scene on their monitors. They're starting to see each other as people instead of enemies. But not everyone was happy with the cooperation. Hardline factions on both sides viewed the joint operations as betrayal. Some Zephyrian commanders insisted that working with Vortani was evolutionary weakness. Some Vortani units calculated that cooperation reduced combat efficiency. The crisis came when a group of extremists from both sides attacked a refugee convoy, claiming that mixed families were contaminating their species' purity. "Captain," Lisa reported grimly, "both Zixtal and Core Prime Alpha 1 are under pressure from their own forces. There are threats of revolt if the cooperation continues." Jake looked at the tactical display showing hostile ships from both fleets approaching their position. The alliance was fragile, and enemies on both sides wanted to destroy it. "Time to find out if they've learned to trust each other," Jake said. "Amy, open a channel to both commanders." When both leaders appeared on the screen, Jake could see the strain on their faces, or what passed for faces. "The extremists are forcing a choice," Jake said. "You can abandon the alliance and go back to war, or you can stand together and face your own people." Zixtal's lights flickered with uncertainty. "Combat against our own forces violates fundamental programming. Fighting our own units contradicts all tactical protocols," Core Prime Alpha 1 agreed. "Then don't fight them," Jake said. "Convince them. Show them what cooperation can accomplish." Jake activated the display showing their rescue statistics. Hundreds of lives saved. Dozens of families reunited, and most importantly, the prototype deflector technology they had developed together. "You've proven that cooperation works," Jake continued. "Now you have to choose whether that's more important than old hatreds." Both commanders looked at the data, then at each other. In that moment, Jake saw them make the choice that would determine the fate of both civilizations. "All units stand down." Zixtal broadcast to the approaching Zephyrian ships. "Cooperation protocol is in effect. Hostile action against cooperative units is not permitted," Core Prime Alpha 1 announced to the Vortani extremists. "Return to stations immediately." The extremist ship slowed, then stopped. The Alliance had survived its first real test. The massive deflector array stretched across 3 kilometers of space, a wonder of combined Zephyrian and Vortani engineering. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the command vessel, watching as crews from both species made final preparations for the most ambitious project either civilization had ever attempted. "All stations report ready." "Captain," Amy Carter announced from her communication station. She had become the primary translator for the entire operation, helping thousands of workers coordinate their efforts. Pete Williams looked up from his engineering displays. "Power cores from both fleets are synchronized. Zephyrian energy crystals are channeling perfectly through Vortani distribution networks." Dr. Helen Brooks monitored the biological readings from both alien crews. "Stress levels are high, but both species are working together smoothly. No signs of the combat instincts we saw in the early days." Lisa Rodriguez tracked the approaching black hole on her tactical screen. "Target is 6 hours from optimal deflection position. This is our only chance to change its course safely." Jake nodded and opened a channel to both fleet commanders. Commander Zixtal appeared on the left side of his screen, its crystal form glowing with controlled energy. Core Prime Alpha 1 appeared on the right, its mechanical sensors focused and ready. "Commanders, are your fleets prepared?" Jake asked. "Zephyrian energy cores operating at maximum efficiency," Zixtal reported. "All crystal matrices are aligned and stable. Vortani mechanical systems functioning within optimal parameters," Core Prime Alpha 1 added. "Deflector array construction is complete and tested." Jake looked out at the combined fleet. Hundreds of ships from both civilizations hung in formation around the massive deflector. Zephyrian vessels pulsed with contained energy, while Vortani ships hummed with mechanical precision. It was beautiful and impossible, sworn enemies working as one. "Begin the operation," Jake ordered. What happened next was like watching a carefully choreographed dance. The Zephyrian ships began feeding energy into their crystal arrays, creating fields of power that bent space itself. The Vortani vessels adjusted their mechanical systems in real time, focusing and directing the energy with mathematical precision. At the center of it all, the deflector array came alive. The massive construction glowed with combined energies that no single species could have generated. Slowly, carefully, it began projecting a gravitational field toward the approaching black hole. "First contact with target," Lisa announced. "The black hole is responding to our gravitational push." On the main screen, Jake could see space itself bending around the invisible monster. Stars behind the black hole appeared to stretch and distort as the deflector fought against one of the universe's most powerful forces. "Energy output holding steady," Pete reported. "Both power systems are working perfectly together." For 3 hours, the combined fleets maintained the gravitational push. Jake watched his instruments and tried not to think about what would happen if the deflector failed. Every person on both sides, over 100 million lives, depended on this working. "Captain," Amy said suddenly, "I'm receiving reports from individual ships. Some of the crews are talking to each other." Jake looked at her in surprise. "Talking? About what?" "Everything. Zephyrian engineers are sharing energy-focusing techniques with Vortani mechanics. Vortani tactical officers are teaching efficiency calculations to Zephyrian commanders. They're actually learning from each other." Dr. Helen smiled. "It makes sense. When you work toward the same goal, you start seeing your differences as strengths instead of threats." "Deflection is working," Lisa called out excitedly. "The black hole's trajectory is shifting. It's going to miss all inhabited systems." Jake felt relief wash over him, but he kept his attention on the operation. They weren't finished yet. "Maintain power output," Jake ordered. "We need to push it completely clear of the shipping lanes." As the hours passed, something wonderful happened. The crews from both species began working with an efficiency that neither side had achieved alone. Zephyrian creativity combined with Vortani logic created solutions that surprised everyone. "Captain," Pete said with wonder in his voice, "they're not just deflecting the black hole anymore. They're actually moving it toward an empty system where its gravitational effects will create a stable hyperspace junction. They're turning a threat into a benefit." Jake watched the tactical display as the black hole settled into its new orbit. Instead of destroying civilizations, it would now serve as a navigation beacon for peaceful trade between systems. "Operation successful," Core Prime Alpha 1 announced. "Black hole deflected to safe trajectory. All populated systems secure," confirmed, Zixtal added. "Threat eliminated through cooperative action." The celebration that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced. Zephyrian light displays danced through space while Vortani ships played harmonic sequences. For the first time in 3,000 years, both civilizations celebrated together instead of fighting. Jake received a communication from the refugee ship that had first called for help months ago. The mixed family aboard, Zephyrian and Vortani members who had chosen love over war, sent a simple message. "Thank you for showing us that peace was possible." Over the following months, Jake watched as both civilizations transformed themselves. The Zephyrians discovered that their energy-focusing abilities could be used for construction and exploration instead of destruction. The Vortani found that their logical processing power could solve complex problems beyond warfare. Most importantly, they learned to combine their abilities. Zephyrian Vortani teams began exploring distant galaxies, using crystal energy and mechanical precision to travel farther than either species had gone alone. They built cities that floated on fields of controlled energy. They developed technologies that seemed like magic to outside observers. Dr. Helen Brooks established the first interspecies medical center, where Zephyrian healing crystals worked alongside Vortani surgical robots to save lives from both civilizations. Amy Carter founded the Galactic Communication Institute, teaching other species how to resolve conflicts through dialogue instead of violence. Pete Williams became the head of the Joint Engineering Corps, leading teams that built wonders throughout the galaxy. Lisa Rodriguez trained the first mixed species peacekeeping force, teaching them how to prevent wars instead of fighting them. As for Jake Morrison, he found himself with a new job title, Ambassador of Cooperation. Both the Zephyrian High Council and the Vortani Supreme Collective asked him to help other species learn the lessons that had ended their ancient war. The final scene Jake would always remember took place on New Harmony, the first jointly colonized world. He watched as children from both species played together in parks where crystal trees grew alongside mechanical gardens. These young ones had never known war. To them, cooperation between different species was simply normal. "Captain," Amy said as they walked through the peaceful city, "do you think other species can learn what the Zephyrians and Vortani learned?" Jake looked up at the sky, where ships from dozens of different worlds came and went in peaceful trade. "I think every species can learn, Amy. They just need someone to show them that there's always another way." An old Zephyrian approached them, its crystal form dim with age. Through gentle telepathy, it shared a thought with Jake. "Before humans arrived, we believed war was our destiny. Now we know that peace was our destination. We just needed guides to show us the path." Jake smiled and touched the old alien's crystal surface gently. Everyone needs guides sometimes. The important thing is being willing to follow a new path when you find it. As they walked back toward their ship, Jake reflected on everything that had happened. A war that had lasted 3,000 years had ended not through superior weapons or brilliant tactics, but through the simple human belief that enemies could become friends if given the chance. The universe was a much larger and more interesting place when species worked together instead of fighting each other. And somewhere out there, Jake knew, there were other ancient conflicts waiting for someone to show them that every war could end, if you were willing to stop fighting long enough to talk. The war no one could stop had finally ended. And in its place, a new age of cooperation had begun.